What's good, everybody? I'm your host, Parker Hughes, and this is Getting Gooder. We jokingly call ourselves the cult of happiness, but we're really just a group of people who want to be the happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest versions of ourselves that we can be. If you're a fan of that mission and like what you learn here, it would really help us out if you could rate the show and subscribe. It goes a long way to help us reach more people, as well as help serve you better. So I'm just asking for you to help, and if you can, it would go a long way. Thanks. Now let's get to the show. When I was growing up, one of the best books, my favorite books of all time, was called The Giver. Some of you may know this, it's been turned into a movie, but it was a book at first, and the premise of the book was that these elders created a community where every day residents would take some medication that suppressed their senses, and it created a world that was void of color, void of the extremes of anger and happiness and true love, etc. It was this muted world, this world that was devoid of memories as well. They took the memories of the past away from the people that were in the community. And instead, they bestowed those memories onto one individual, referred to in the book as the receiver of memory. And since that individual was the only person to have all the memories of the world, he used his historical knowledge to help the elders make decisions about the past, make decisions for the future, so that they can avoid the mistakes that were made. And eventually, this receiver of memory got too old, or was getting older, and so he had to start thinking about passing on his memories to the next generation, which was called the other receiver of memory, making him then the giver, which is why the title of the book is called The Giver. Now, the details aren't that important for what we're talking about today, but what I do find important is how this book formed in the first place, or how the community in the book formed. This is all conjecture. It doesn't really mention it in the book, but I think that essentially what happened is that in this dystopian world, over time, people essentially started to lose faith in the innate goodness of humans. They figured that the only way to ensure peace in the world was to suppress everyone's sensations and create this smaller, muted life that was able to control people's actions so they didn't truly have free will. They essentially lost faith that people would be kind, they'd be giving and agreeable if they had all the memories of the world and all the sensations that existed in normal life. But the main character of the book, the receiver of memory, the new receiver of memory, was a good citizen. He did the things that they wanted him to do at first, but then as he started receiving memories through that process of getting memories from the giver, he began to disagree with the elders, as you might expect. He started to think that we can have faith in others. We can have faith that people can handle the memories of the past and a full spectrum of emotions and still have a peaceful, harmonious life. And yeah, I think we'd all agree with that to some extent, but I don't think it's quite enough. I think that in order to create true peace and harmony, we can't just put blind trust in the fact that it'll all work out eventually. I'm talking about real life, present day right now. I don't think we can expect us to learn from our historical past and from our painful memories, because honestly, it hasn't worked so far. It hasn't happened to any dramatic degree. Sure, we have a lot of tremendous advancements that we can be proud of, but in terms of the world peace thing, we still have a lot to learn. So if I were to go back to this fictional society, if I were an elder in this fictional world of the giver, I'd propose that instead of depressing our memories and our sensations, we should keep all of those things, keep the memories and sensations, but then we would take a medication that would enhance and amplify certain sensations, like those sensations of love, abundance, and giving. And in that way, I think that that is how we would create the world that they see in this fictional society, this giver world. We could create that same thing, not only with medication, that's kind of the hypothetical, but with enhancing our personal mindset of giving and abundance and love. Because I do agree with the author. They all took medication individually in order to suppress their individual sensations. And I think that that's true, that it happens at an individual scale. I think world peace is a grassroots campaign. It's a mindset change that grows from one individual to the next. And then from those individuals, it grows into a community. And that builds into a movement. And from that movement, it becomes a culture or an expected way of doing things. So that eventually, in the same way that a culture can create expectations of things like going to college, because that's just what you do when you're in a culture that emphasizes that, I think that can also apply to this mindset of abundance and giving and expansion. I think it'll just become a pervasive part of a worldview when it starts from the grassroots, with individuals changing their mindset to enhance and amplify these sensations of love, abundance, and giving. Now, I know that all sounds a little bit like I'm a contestant on the Miss America pageant or something, calling for world peace up on stage, but even though I do believe that the final result of this mindset change centered around giving will result in world peace, I also think that having the mentality of abundance can be selfishly applied to your own life in order to benefit you specifically, financially, emotionally, physically, socially, literally whatever. I think that if you are looking to have more of anything in your life, it starts with giving more. And in order to understand that, we have to start with thinking about the opposite, because most of the time, the opposite mindset is what prevents us from experiencing the full, abundant, generous, and giving nature of ourselves or of others. It's true of anything. If we have an opposing mindset in our subconscious, that usually prevents us from achieving the goals that we want to see in ourselves or in the world. And in this case, the opposite of an abundant mindset, a giving mindset, is this scarcity mindset. And scarcity mindset is essentially the feeling of not having enough, or that a valuable resource may run out if you don't seize it right now. You've probably seen this in your own life. The scarcity mindset, it starts to breed. It has a bunch of these little like gremlin babies that it put neediness into your brain. It puts these ideas of desperation, feelings of angst into your mind. In the business world, this might look like a desperate attempt to find ways to make money. If you're a business person and you've had these moments of scarcity, you may have had these calls of desperation to make more money in some new way, and you felt that desperation. If you were selling something, your sales pitch may look like begging for the sale rather than offering something of value. And if you're in the service industry like me, then desperation may look like you desperately attempting to get more clients and doing things to achieve that don't feel authentic, don't feel genuine. In the social world, that scarcity mindset looks like when you have beliefs that deep, meaningful connections are scarce or hard to come by. And so you might desperately search for friendships in the wrong places. It might cause you to also exhibit dependency and neediness in the relationships that you have, because your subconscious is thinking that relationships in general and love in general is scarce, it's consumable, it's exhaustible. And as we know from all of these examples of this scarcity mindset, it's kind of a turnoff. People can smell this desperation from a mile away, and almost always it will work against you. Any hint of desperation causes others to lose confidence in you, because kind of at the heart of that desperation is a lack of confidence in yourself. And if you don't have confidence in yourself, then why should they? Somehow humans have developed this innate ability to sense this feeling of desperation in others. Maybe it's an evolutionary development related to choosing a mate, that you don't want somebody who's desperate in your life, or to choose them for a full time. But regardless of how it formed, it's a very real phenomenon. We can sense desperation. And when you have this sense of scarcity or a sense of desperation about you, you adopt a mentality of needing to get more. And while that's a useful mentality, It can help us be motivated. It can help drive work ethic and grit. It's not the mentality that you want to start with. When you start with a mentality of wanting to get something out of it, get something out of someone or something, the only thing you'll end up with is just more scarcity, more dissatisfaction. So the getting mentality, that need to get something out of someone or something, that needs to come secondary to a giving mentality. Giving should always come first. If you want more of anything in your life, start with giving. Now, there's a thought process around giving that we have to wait until we have enough, or that we feel like we have enough in order to start to give. When you have enough time in your schedule, you can go volunteer. When you have enough money in the bank, you can donate to charity or give to others or provide for your family in bigger and better ways. But this feeling of enough, it's not just from external things. It's not just having more things to give you that sense of enough. It actually is generated from and through the act of giving itself. So instead of waiting for some arbitrary number of dollars in the bank or some magical opening in your schedule, just start to give. Start giving. Find a way to give, and you'll swell up this feeling of enough through the act of giving itself, even when you don't feel like you have enough. So if you start every morning with the question of, what can I give today? What can I do for somebody else, something else? How can I be helpful? You'll see so many benefits in your life. Just by first acting and giving what you can, you'll naturally have this mindset shift that makes you feel a sense of abundance, this sense of having enough. And the wording of that question I mentioned before, of what can I give? That wording is important, because by saying, what can I give, you're implying that you will give what you're able to, and no more, no less. It doesn't mean that you're going to go try to find resources that you don't have. It doesn't mean that you're going to go try to do things that don't feel like they come from a place of integrity. And it doesn't mean that you're going to go try and hack the system in some way. You'll just give what you have the capacity to give right now in your current state. And although it may seem like you don't have much capacity to give anything at all, I promise you're always going to have something to give. And during those times when you're feeling scarce, when you don't feel like you have a lot to give, those are the moments when you're just going to have to get a little creative. You're going to have to think a little deeper and spend a little more time and effort figuring out how to give. Having the mentality that you always have something to give, no matter how small, that is going to work wonders in your life. And waking up every morning with the thought that you have something, anything to give, will attract more of that goodness into your life. Just thinking the thought about how you can give, and then making some kind of effort to carry out that thought, it creates so much abundance both in your life and in the world around you. That feeling of abundance may come in the form of simply feeling like you have enough, like we just described, even when there are no changes to the amount of money in your bank account or the number of friends in your inner circle. You might just get this sensation of having enough by giving. Or you may also get the sensation of abundance from more things actually coming into your life, by actually getting more money or more meaningful relationships or better mental and physical health, whatever it is. But what matters in that equation is not the thought, it's the effort. Some say that it's the thought that counts, but honestly, I think that's kind of bullshit. No one cares that no one cares that you thought about inviting them to your birthday party. No charity cares that you thought about donating money or thought about volunteering at their event. What matters is that you actually made an effort. Even if all you can give is something really small, it matters. Because in the end, effort is just another word for life energy. And if you're willing to use your precious life energy for the benefit of someone or something else, that's the ultimate sign of generosity. Because life energy is the only truly limited resource. You only have a certain amount of time before you die and use it up. So the fact that you're willing to give it away is a reflection of how much you care. You're making a trade-off. You're choosing to spend your life energy on that person or that cause rather than the infinite number of other things that you could be doing. And while giving money, it's a reflection of life energy, because you had to use life energy to earn that money. It's just not the same. Money is infinite. It can be infinitely created and it can circle through our economy indefinitely. Also, money is just a construct of value. What's truly valuable, what's truly real and finite is your time. And giving that precious resource away, just it hits different, whether it's from you as a giver or as a receiver. It just feels different. And that's why when you're feeling down, mentally, when you're feeling down, one of the quickest, most effective ways to lift your spirits is to do something kind for someone you care about. By generously giving your time, your effort, your life energy to somebody else, you'll immediately feel a sense of joy. It's real. It's you. It's right now. And it's not just a piece of cloth with a dead president printed on it. Now, obviously, those pieces of cloth are still very important in our lives, but like I said, it's just an indicator of value. It's a construct that our society invented to represent value, and it's a tool for creating more abundance, but it is just a tool in the end. If you want to get more of that tool in your life, more money in your life, you get it by creating value. And you create value by giving more. It's like that business adage of under promise and over deliver, but I think it's just one word, it's just over deliver. Give 10 times the value that you want to receive, and you'll watch the returns roll in. Now, if you're anything like me, you might feel a little overwhelmed when you hear me talk about this concept of giving, because you think that if you just keep giving, giving, and giving, and giving all the time, you're going to burn out. And it's true, because don't worry, that's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want you to do that, because having a giving mentality or giver mentality, it comes with a healthy dose, a very healthy dose of knowing your worth, knowing your value, and being able to receive on the flip side. You can't just give and give and give with no reciprocity whatsoever. Because even if that reciprocity comes in the form of good feelings or a sense of purpose, that's still reciprocity in some way. And those good feelings usually start from the reaction of others. They usually starts from the appearance of progress that you get from contributing to a cause. If your generosity weren't received well at all, or if you didn't see any noticeable progress being made on the project that you're working on, it's unlikely that you're going to continue to be generous towards that cause. You're essentially going to get burned out because there's no reciprocity, no positive feedback for your generosity. So that's why when I said earlier that the getting mentality is secondary to the giving mentality, I didn't say that you should eliminate the getting mentality. You shouldn't eliminate that from your brain. You should just put it secondary to giving. Because while you're practicing ways to give, it's still necessary to have a little self-interest. You need a little selfishness and a little desire for reciprocity. Without reciprocity, without satisfying your self-interest or selfishness in some way, that giving mentality would actually be dangerous. Because without that selfishness behind your giving, you become a pushover, a people pleaser, an overgiver. This leads to burnout and poor outcomes on your health, number one, but also in my experience, it can also lead to resentment, repressed emotions, or a blow up in anger because you're giving all the time at the expense of your own needs and wants. So you must have a healthy amount of selfishness in order to show up and give. Because if you don't care for yourself, we know this, self-love, if you don't show self-love and self-care in that way and being able to receive, you won't be able to show up for long. Somehow, some way, it's going to catch up to you, whether that's your physical health, your mental health, or your inability to communicate and set boundaries. So while you start with the giving mentality, you must also have this knowingness, this desire that it will come back to you in some way. That's to prevent you from getting burned out. So in the case of personal relationships, this might take the form of allowing others the opportunity to give. People like to give. In fact, some studies have actually shown that the giver gets more satisfaction than the receiver. So if you're always the one giving and never receiving, you'll be keeping everybody from experiencing the pleasure that comes from giving to you. You can't be the only one that gives. I mean, it would actually be selfish for you to be the only one who is selfless all the time. It's a little arrogant too, to think that you're the only one who can give and to be unwilling to accept someone else's attempts to give. There's enough generosity to go around, I promise you. Your kindness can live right alongside your friend's kindness. Even if you have this really deep giving identity, you can allow others to give and be willing to take what they have to give. Also, in the case of money in business, we know that you can't just give and give and give and expect money to just roll in. People will take all the free that they can get. So you give, yes, you give because you love it, but you also have to have the systems of receiving set up so that there's an avenue for value to flow back towards you. Like a tide, the flow of value will go in and out. And if you're an ocean, you have to have the capacity to accept that tide as it flows back towards you. Being a giver without a method for receiving is going to leave you broke. It's just how it works, right? You can't just give and give and give in a business and expect money to just roll in on its own. You have to be able to ask for things too. And it's okay to ask for things. It's okay to lean on people that know, like, and trust you. Like I said, people enjoy giving, but they often won't give because they don't know how to give. It's kind of like you're at a dinner party and everyone's preparing food, and then these new guests come in and they may want to help prepare the dinner, but they end up just standing around unsure of what to do because nobody's giving them direction or an avenue for giving. So you need to be the person that allows that to happen, to ask for help or to instruct of how they can help so that there's an avenue for them to give to you. So have the courage to ask for help. Open the door to allow people to give. But the one main caveat to that statement, very important caveat, is that if you ask for help and they don't want to give, or that they don't have the capacity to give, then there can't be any judgment at all coming from you. You gave because you wanted to give, not because you're going to cash in on it later. If you judge them for not returning the favor, then you're just keeping score. You're looking for a this for that relationship. And that's not a giving mentality. With a giving mentality, you know that you can't control how your generosity will come back to you. You can't control it. All you can do is create an opportunity for it to come back to you, and then just trust that it will one day. So to put it simply, you are putting your faith into this thing called the law of reciprocity. And really, this is more of a social norm than a law. What it describes is that people want to return favors. They want to repay a kindness. It's a desire that may come from a feeling of obligation, or it may come from a true desire to give back. But either way, this law works, the law of reciprocity that shows that people want to give back. But it only works if you don't keep score. Keeping track of who's returning your favor or how your effort is getting rewarded, that's not a giving mentality. Like I said, it's this quid pro quo, a this for that arrangement. And it's only going to get you so far in life if you keep it up. Now, I've struggled with these concepts that I'm talking about right now. I've struggled about them many times in my life, and honestly, I feel like I'm still struggling with them. It's only just recently that these mentalities have started to sink in a little bit. For example, in my early adult life, even to this day, I felt more like a taker than a giver. I felt like everyone was being so generous to me, and I didn't think that I could offer them anything in return. I felt like I had nothing to give, especially financially. And at the same time, I felt like such a taker because I was and still am learning how to receive. I was so resistant to receive. I felt like a mooch, like I shouldn't ask for help or a favor because it would inconvenience someone. I didn't even give people the opportunity to be generous and help me, even if it was an inconvenience to them. Seriously, like even yesterday, this was a subject of my day. It was an issue for me to ask for help when I knew it was an inconvenience. I'm still trying to learn this, literally as we speak. I'm so bad at asking for help and so bad at accepting generosity, but I'm learning, and I'm trusting that my mentors that have advocated for the importance of both giving and receiving are right, that they've applied it to their life and that I can apply it to mine and see success. So recently, I started to put down some of these lessons onto paper. I'm a pretty logical and practical guy, so I like to have a plan of action even in it's something as spontaneous as giving. I like to have at least a framework so I'm free to be spontaneous within that structure so I can arrange my actions accordingly. So I started by writing down the ways or the avenues where I primarily would like to give through. And I'd call these things my giver identities. Those identities for me would be I like to give as a teacher, a leader, a doctor, and as a friend. And friend would be more of an all-encompassing word for all of the close personal relationships in my life. So I identified these identities as a giver, and you can do the same. And then from there, I try to get more specific. I try to think about all the ways that I will give through these identities. Essentially, I asked the question of how can I give for each of the giver identities that I had. And what I came up with is that I'd like to give as a teacher by creating educational content and creating an educational platform, both online and in person, that allows what I've learned to be more accessible to people and be as accessible as possible. I want to give as a leader by starting a community where I organize presentations like these, meetups, and events where we can all learn and grow together and become the happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest version of ourselves. That's the mission of Getting Gooder, is to help us become that. And that's one of the ways where I like to give. And then I give as a doctor or a chiropractor by helping people heal and stay healthy. Partly I'd help them through hands-on care, but honestly, most of what I do is through teaching, and especially teaching people how not to need me. In my opinion, that's the ultimate form of medicine, and I want to give the ultimate form of medicine to as many people as possible. So I want to direct them to the best treatments, whether that's my treatment in my office or whether it's something that they can do at home or maybe something in someone else's office. And then I also would like to give as a friend by not only being willing or able to give help when it's asked of me, but I want to take the initiative to give as well. I want to be able to show unencumbered, unsolicited generosity. Now, a caveat to that statement is that this is an area where it's easy for me to experience burnout by just giving and giving and giving all the time. So while I want to give and be helpful when my friends need it, I also want to have the courage and the self-awareness to say no and not feel badly about it. At the same time, I also want to be able to receive generosity more openly without feeling bad about that either. So all those statements, those ways to give, I like them, but they were still a little general for me. So I wanted to write down in detail exactly what ways my giving might come into play. Now, for me, my giver mentalities are also related to my businesses, and so it's a little bit easier for me to form ways of giving, I think. But there's also small ways that you can talk about your personal relationships, like expressing thanks or giving small gifts, showing love in the love languages that you might know about. So those are small ways to give in your personal lives. But in my sense, I came up with things that are both business related and personal related. They just seem to coalesce that way for me. So here's what I wrote down. Also, the only reason why I'm telling you these things is so it can be helpful examples for you to draw from and maybe stoke the fire in your brain of how you can give specifically in your life too. So the ways that I specifically would like to give is by writing books, writing blogs, creating podcasts. That would be like that, creating educational platform to make it more accessible to people. I would also like to give in-person presentations like the ones I'm doing now, plan events, host activities where people can just get together and learn, chill out, move and be active, or serve and give to others. I want to create that environment. I also want to create tools and resources like worksheets and roadmaps and online calculators, lists of my favorite things, all these things that would go into this educational platform that can help people expand their horizons even more. And also a big project that I'm working on is creating a rewards program that rewards healthy behaviors and allows people to win prizes for that behavior. I like to create this positive reinforcement for health, where healthy behaviors would be immediately rewarded rather than some far off thing that will hopefully pay off in the future, but we don't really know for sure. So I want to create this rewards program that helps make health more immediate, more in the right now. And I also want to practice giving by making my chiropractic care more accessible to others. I have this sliding scale model of payment where there's a range of the amount that you can pay for my care. And so that helps lower the barrier of entry. And it also makes what I have to offer more valuable than what I charge for it. Additionally, in my practice, I will consistently want to promote other health professionals and refer to them frequently and often. I don't want to hold so tightly to my patient base that I forget about my colleagues, and I don't want to have such a heightened opinion of my treatment that it blinds me from seeing the options that are out there and available to my patients. These options may be better for the person that came in for my care. And so I want to be able to see that and direct them to the place that they need to go instead of be so desperate to keep them as a client. Now, like I said, the only reason I'm sharing this personal plan is that so you can use it as an example for your own giving plan. And I find it really helpful to physically write this stuff down. It helped me to get really clear because I could see all these things on one page. It allowed me to brainstorm my ideas, my methods for giving, and then connect and group my thoughts together into categories. So then I can come away with main ideas as well as really specific granular action steps. So I'd recommend you do the same. In fact, the reason I feel so excited and passionate about all these projects that I just described is because I could see it all come together when I started writing it down. I was able to connect the dots between the things that bring me happiness and joy, and then the ways that I can give and receive. Those beautifully connected to each other and played off each other and fulfilled each other in a way that I never thought was possible. I can literally satisfy all of my personal needs, all of my wants, while giving wholeheartedly. Through the act of giving, I'll be receiving all the things that matter to me. And even though that's basically what I've been saying this whole presentation, it still surprises me. The fact that those things can exist so simultaneously together and plan each other so beautifully. So I think it would be really helpful for you to write down your own giving plan. First, you identify your giving identities. And then you just describe how you will give through those identities. And then you can come up with the very specific, very practical details of what you can give. Ask yourself every morning, how can I give today? And if you've already written down this framework or this giving plan, it will make that question a lot easier to answer every morning. And you're just going to get right to it. Sometimes it's going to be spontaneous and you can create unique ways to give, and that's beautiful. But most of the time, having a structure of giving will make it more accessible and easier to attain rather than seeming like an ominous task every morning. And finally, in your giving plan, I want you to write down ways you will receive as well. What systems might you put in place to accept kindness and accept generosity? This is especially important if receiving is something that's hard for you to practice. So I suggest in that case that you ask yourself a second question: how can I receive today? Or how can I ask for help today? Again, having some framework around this will not only help you receive money from a business or a job, but it'll also help you to receive non-monetary compensation through relationships and personal connections, and so forth. So the homework for today is to create a giving plan. Ask yourself that question: how can I give today? And then maybe ask the secondary question: how can I receive today, or ask for help today? Start with giving and watch your life transform. That's all for now. Remember, hit that subscribe button if you like what you hear and you want to hear more. And if you could, I'd love it if you wrote a review. It really helps me to reach more people and serve you better. Also, head on over to gettinggooder.org. We have a ton of free resources over there to help you design your life of the happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest version of yourself that you can be. Until next time, go get gooder.